Hello, friends of the blade. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure. Well, I guess by this famous quota you already know that today we're going to speak about Conan the Barbarian and his world famous Atlantean sword. This one is made by Albion Armorers, and I got it approximately 4 years ago. I've been waiting for this for over a year and was so happy when I got it. It's number 450. And I want to talk with you today not only about this Atlantean sword, but also about the character of Conan and his inventor Robert Irvin Howard. Well, when I was a young boy 20 years ago, I liked to read the stories, the short stories of Robert E. Howard. And this guy, he lived from 1906 till 1936, so he got only 30 years old. And here in Germany we have the Heine Verlag publishing his stories. And you know, Robert E. Howard wrote not only the Conan stories, but he also invented the characters of Kull the Conqueror, King Kull, or Solomon Kane. But I think Conan was his world famous character. Conan more or less came out of the ancient dusts of nowhere with his muscles, and he is more an animal than a man. And I always wonder why he fascinates so many people. Conan makes his way in the comic books and in the movies, and famous stories of Robert E. Howard are the Tower of the Elephant that he wrote in March 1933, so only 3 years before his death, or maybe Shadows in the Moonlight that he wrote in 1934. And he left us short stories that were published in pulp magazines like Weird Tales. And after the death of Robert E. Howard, other people picked up the pieces or the fragments of stories. Other authors like Lynn Carter added pieces, and so the story spread and made growth, and it's similar like to the Arthur Conan Doyle stories of Sherlock Holmes. In my youth I tried to fetch together the pieces. Like in the Tower of the Elephant, Conan was approximately 17 years old, and it's rather difficult to get a curriculum vitae in Conan's life. But gladly, recently, I discovered this book here called Das Conan-Universum, and the authors try to do exactly the same, to bring good order in all the fragments of the stories, to put it into one chronologic order. So if you are capable of reading German, this is a very nice book, Das Conan-Universum. Very, very good for all Conan fans. Yeah, Conan made his way into comics. He is into Marvel comics, like this one, like this one, like you see on this comic drawings, it looks like the Thor and Loki drawings of this 1960s-70s design. I like this a lot. And of course, also in 1982, the first Conan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger came, and this really hit like a rock. It was amazing, and already now, more than 30 years later, the first Conan movie is worthwhile watching. Okay, the special effects, well, are so-so with the big snake and stuff, but the magic especially the scene when Conan gets his sword in this ancient tomb is so amazing. This was 1982, and 1984 Conan the Destroyer followed. And when Albion made the sword, this is the Atlantean sword of the first movie. It has the handle wrapped with cord, with some wool cord, and in 1984 the Destroyer sword is a larger brother of the Atlantean. It is 1 inch longer in blade and 1 inch longer in grip, so approximately 2 inches longer, and the grip is wrapped with leather cord, not with this wool cord. It's rather heavy, approximately more than 7 pounds, I think nearly 8 pounds that this sword has. And what's amazing, or what's characteristic, what you see at first glance, is here the ricasso. Ricasso design is very, very long. And what's important also, every original Albion sword has little, hard to see, the number. Here it says number 415 of 1000 and Conan properties written here. 6 years ago I followed some discussion on eBay where a guy saw I have no engraving on this, and people repeatedly asked him, have a close look, and then after 1 week he said, okay, there is a number in it. So this is number 415. Such an awesome sword. And you know what? I also got a very cheap Chinese copy of the Destroyer sword. I want to show you. Original Atlantean, cheap Chinese copy. And well, although it's a copy, I like this cheap sword here because it has the same weight, and so I don't want to go outside with my expensive Albion sword, so I can use this one to practice and to handle the weight of this sword. And you can easily see that this is a cheap copy because you can dismount it. If you can unscrew the pommel of this one. Here you have the pommel. Then you can take away the grip. You see, in fact, the grip is hollow. It's just a piece of plastic wrapped with some ISO tape, with some duct tape. And then you can remove, I think, this it goes. So you see, this is one solid piece. In fact, it's really heavy. And I think it's brass. And this is a blade. Remove this, then you here have the blade of this cheap Chinese copy. And you see, this is really crap. It's just one very tiny metal pawl, even wielded or welded there. And of course that's not the way like a sword blade has to be. I've seen on the internet pictures of the raw Albion blade, and there it's the tang design, it's massive. It goes like about an inch thick up to the very end where the pommel is put on. So the Albion tang is massive. Meanwhile this cheap Chinese fake is really crappy. And in fact when I swing it, I'm sometimes afraid if it might break. So have to be cautious about this in order to assemble it. Goes like this. Putting together the right end, of course. So then the other piece. Well, I'll do this later. It's more important to have a look at the Albion sword. And you know, what I want to point out, the question, is this a functional sword? Well, Albion Armorers delivers the Conan swords in this wooden box together with a certificate. This certificate claiming the number of the sword. My sword is number 415 out of 1000, and the blade was made under supervision of Jody Sampson, the great Jody Sampson. Yeah, I like the Albion wooden box, and the sword looks like this. Ta-da! Beautiful, beautiful sword indeed. I wanna point out some details about this sword that is beautiful craftsmanship. The steel is high carbon steel, high quality steel, and the fittings are made of bronze. And I wanna tell you some aspects about the fittings. What's very characteristic is the long ricasso from here to here, long ricasso design. Here on the blade, in between the bronze fittings of the ricasso, there are some runes engraved, very deeply engraved. In fact, looks beautiful. They don't have any meaning, these runes. Well, at least they are fantasy runes. I mention this because on the father's sword of the first Conan movie, the runes, they have some English meaning, which I find a little bit funny. Now, the ricasso has also a functional aspect. We will come to this later. When you keep in mind the way that Conan gets his sword in the movie, he escapes from the wolves that hunt him, and then gets into this ancient tomb where this skeleton, this ancient Atlantean king, is sitting. And if you have the scene in mind, remember how big the hand is that is resting. The skeleton is sitting on the throne, and the skeleton is having his hand on the pommel. And next time you watch it, just have a look how large the hand is. This skeleton guy, this ancient king, must have been 9 to 10 feet tall. Much taller than Conan, in fact, is. And now, looking at the crossguard here, in fact, you find some very interesting details. I have read explanations what this might be. You see, this is a volcano, and you see the volcano is just erupting. You have some flames coming out of the volcano here, and these are waves. This is the sea. So this is a hint on the destruction of Atlantis. Atlantis was destroyed by this volcano eruption, and these friendly nice creatures here, these are sea serpents coming out and chasing the citizens of Atlantis that drowned then. So this is a hint on the catastrophe. And you remember this ancient skeleton king was a warrior of Atlantis. And remember in the scene that the sword was covered with cobwebs and To me, I like the scene very much. It gives chills down my spine when I see how Conan gets his sword. And I think that's with many of you the case. Okay, and there is also some explanation about the pommel design. Also related to the story of this destruction of Atlantis. You see here this structure around the pommel. This could be a canoe, like the ancient Egyptian canoes made of wheat, of plants. And sometimes you see on the History Channel canoes like this that the Egyptian guys had. And this is a mountain structure. Well, and the skull might be a hint on the death of many when this catastrophe happened that Atlantis was destroyed. So here's a canoe that allowed some survivors of the catastrophe to escape in the canoe, and the volcano eruption and the sea snakes and the waves here all hints on the story related to this ancient king that the sword belonged to before Conan got it. I think this makes sense. So beautiful, beautiful craftsmanship of this Conan sword. Yeah. Awesome. So, all you sword maniacs out there, now we are outdoors and I just want to spend some thoughts about the very important question: is such a heavy sword like the Atlantean, is it capable of being wielded in a realistic way? So, more or less, is it a functional sword? Or is it just a wall hanger being too heavy to be wielded? And I just want to try out this question by giving you some movements of the traditional medieval Lichtenauer fencing school, sword school of the 14th, 15th century. Well, let's look. Lichtenauer favored the way of fencing with two hands, like this. So, with two hands it's really possible to wield the sword. It's exercising, physical exercising, and with two hands easily possible, and I think even with one hand you can manage, at least for a short time of 2 minutes or so, to wield the sword. With both hands, I like to train with both hands, with the right hand, my natural right hand, and sometimes I switch to the left hand just to train the arm as well. This is not the sharp sword, this is a blunt trainer. So this minimizes the risk of cutting or hurting oneself. Well, the tip is really sharp. That's too sharp for a training sword, in fact. The tip is needle sharp, but the edges are blunt. So, in fact, when you swing this baby, this Atlantean sword, then you do it in a manner you just bring the sword up to speed and then let go the sword in whichever direction you swing it. You just let it go. I mentioned this point because in the Lichtenauer school he mentions that if you have your opponent, you should avoid giving a blow and then swinging the blow up to the down to the earth, down to the end, because what can happen is you have your opponent, you try to hurt him at the neck or breast, you miss because he makes a step back, you swing, you miss, you swing to the ground, and then your opponent has easy play to give a counter attack. That's not so good. That's why Lichtenauer recommends to stop your blow with the point pointed forwards towards the aggressor, to the opponent. And therefore a heavy sword is not so good, because it's very difficult to stop in the swinging motions, because when you bring the sword up to speed, it wants to go where it wants to go. But it's really fun just to swing it around, yeah, just for practicing reason. You will notice it in your shoulders and arms that it is heavy. It's not as lightweight as a Japanese katana, of course. But getting back to the first question, yes, you can wield the sword. You can manage to do exercises with it. Very expanding movements. And it's fun. So what I'm doing here is I swing the sword and have my right hand just below the crossguard, and when I'm here at the end of the swinging motion, I give way and grip the sword here. And now getting back, I use the left hand at the crossguard. It's the same motion. I swing it until here, give way, and then I use again my right hand down below the crossguard. So it's, I just give the other hand possibility to grab below the crossguard. So if you do this for 4 minutes or so, that's really fun. So, awesome Atlantean sword.